Today, it is my pleasure to introduce an artist whom I met this past summer in what was really one of the peak exhibition experiences of my life. You all might have heard of Upstate Art Weekend. Well, there's a couple of artists, Adam Simon and Michelle Araujo, who have a ginormous, like cathedral-like barn up in the town of Stamford. And they use it as studio space, but a couple times now for Upstate Art Weekend, they've invited other artists to show their work. And I was thrilled to share that space with them and a couple of other artists. And Jude Tallichet, every day we would gather in the late morning. We would have coffee. We would often bring food and make lunch together. Sometimes stick around in the late afternoon for dinner and spend the day in this barn and taking dips in the pond nearby and welcoming people who would stop by. And it was really one of those destination situations where if you drove all the way there, you were going to stay for a while. And so we had a lot of wonderful long conversations with people who really attended to the work. And so often you have a show and people show up and maybe a friend of yours will ask you, so what was the response? And you have no idea, right? And this is one of those experiences where there was really time to experience the art, to witness people taking in your work and see how long people spent looking at it. And it was just a wonderful experience, and wonderful also to get to know a bunch of artists. It was nice to be the youngest artist in the show. And I realized that all the other artists in this exhibition had been making work continuously and practicing professionally for around 50 years. And I thought, wow, there is real value in this experience. And we don't pay enough attention to that. One of the ways to define success is to be able to keep art making at the center of your life for the rest of it. Going through cycles of external recognition and obscurity and financial stability and instability, to be able to keep doing it and keep it vital is precious. And so I learned a lot just from being with them. So this is one of them. This is Jude Tallichet. She mostly makes sculptures, and over the course of her career, she's also done some performance, quite a bit actually, video, and she also has made music as a member of a band and in other ways. Her work explores the familiar objects and architectural spaces that shape the everyday landscape, frequently engaging with themes of transformation, cultural signifiers, and the tension between the monumental and the mundane. Facture, how it is made, is a huge element of Jude's work. And sometimes that inspires mystery, other times kind of awe and marvel at transformation of materials. But there's a wonderful madeness to Jude's work. Solo exhibitions include Smack Mellon, Robert Miller Gallery, Sara Meltzer Gallery, 5 Miles, Manhattan College, and Volta Art Fair in New York. Catskill Art Space in Livingston Manor, and an unnamed barn in Stamford. Burnet Gallery in Minneapolis, and the Santa Barbara Contemporary Arts Forum in California. Her work's been included in group exhibitions at MoMA PS1, Sculpture Center, the Brooklyn Museum, PS 122, Periogi Gallery, may it rest in peace, great gallery, which is now Candace Matty Gallery, and Below Grand here in New York, also the Gothenburg Konsthallen in Sweden, the Shanghai Biennial in China, the Busan Biennial in Korea, and the Tirana Biennial in Albania. She's got some upcoming shows at Mana Contemporary in New Jersey, at Ptolemy Gallery in Queens, and at Art Yard in Frenchtown, New Jersey. Her work has been reviewed or discussed in Art in America, Art Review, Art Forum, Art Net, Art Critical, Flash Art, Freeze, Hyperallergic, Interview, Modern Painters, New Art Examiner, New York Magazine, Sculpture, Tema Celeste? Celeste? Well, it's Italian, I don't know. The New York Times, the Village Voice, the Wall Street Journal, Time Out New York, Two Coats of Paint, White Hot Magazine, and WNYC Radio. She's participated in residencies at MacDowell, the Millay Colony, the Rosa de la Cruz Collection, and the Civitella Ranieri Center in Italy. Her work has received support from the Fulbright Program, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the New York Foundation for the Arts. And she's a Professor Emerita of Sculpture at the Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, where she taught for nearly 3 decades. She has an MFA in Sculpture and a BA in Religion Studies from the University of Montana in Bozeman. No, I'm sorry, in Missoula. Yes. Please join me in welcoming Jude Tallichet.
I'm so happy to be here. I just wanted to remind you that it was a cold winter, so just in case you forgot. But I'm starting out with this because it was just this moment that I'm sure you saw it on social media. It was after the second snow. And it was this incredible, all the parks, like in Brooklyn, just sprouted up into a sculpture garden. And it was so amazing. And it was lovely and so spontaneous. And there were like, snow sculptures sitting at chessboards and little chess pieces and just so incredible. And I came away from there and I was really like, I'm really glad to be a human being. I'm glad I'm an embodied person in a body. And it just opened this space. And this is a space I think where artists really want to engage. We want to be in a space that's open where we can come together with other people's minds. Like as a viewer, you want to be able to do that when you see art that really moves you, that we want to enter that space. And also as an artist, you want to create that space. So somehow we're always engaging with that whenever we work, whenever we make work. And it's really important right now, especially, I think, to be able to engage that space because it's a space of choices. And I think right now, like with everything that's going on, it's about taking away choices. So we become a predictable populace because when we're predictable, we can be controlled. And so it's really important that for art right now to engage in these spaces of being very unpredictable. And we can speak a little bit about that later. So anyway, on to my work. All right, so I'm showing some old work. This is actually work from the 80s, just a few slides of this stuff. And I was working in welded steel, and I was making these little creatures and these kind of animal-like entities, and they were kind of populated all over in this outdoor park. This one was actually in Staten Island. And I had been making these. I've been making these weird shapes with these little objects. And somehow I love my body being involved with work. But they I was trying to work with like body horror. I was trying to work with like form. I was trying to work a little bit with abstraction, but somehow I felt like they weren't meeting the moment. I feel like what made that snow sculpture work so well, and what a lot of painters, where you're a painter sculpture performance, you really have to meet the moment with the context of what's happening around you in popular culture, in other kinds of culture, intellectually. Your curiosity sort of has to meet that. And I felt like this work wasn't meeting the moment. I was really interested in body horror. I think I had this incident when I was a kid where my mom had suffered an alien abduction. I don't know if it's suffered, but was it real? Was it not? I don't know. But we were kids. It was like in the 50s. And we heard from neighbors. My mom had found herself out in a field. The classic missing time trope. She was like, she woke up and just found herself there. So the neighbors had known, but they were like, don't tell the kids, they'll freak out, they'll be terrified. And of course we heard from the neighbors and then we were terrified. So the whole thing was just so bizarre. And so then I went to her, and my family's very Southern, very closed down, very not rock the boat, very polite. And I said, "Oh, Mom, what happened? What did they? It was so interesting. It was the most interesting thing that ever happened in my life." I was like, "Mom, what happened?" And she was like, "It's fine, honey. Nothing happened. They said they wouldn't hurt me." And I was like, "Oh, well, okay." But I think I was kind of obsessed with this. But I kind of don't think this work wasn't working for me. It wasn't working in the moment. It was kind of like, it wasn't, and people that I respected didn't really like it, and I kind of wanted to change. I was moving to New York. I thought, well, maybe now is the time. Maybe now is the time to like just reinvent myself. Why not? So I decided to do it. I mean, I was looking at people that I really respected. Like, okay, so you have Jean-Michel Basquiat burning bright, and you have like the early work by Sidney Sherman. I was really dealing with body horror in a really cool way, in a way nobody had ever done it before. And then I was also looking at Katie Nolan dealing with modernism. I mean, she would just come in and plunk down like a milk carton filled with Polaroids and chain link fence. And it was so amazing. So I was like, where do I fit? How do I work? And then I was making terrible work, like this next slide of really terrible work. I just thought I'd show you a bad piece. I mean, I worked hard on this, but you know what? It's not it. It's like illustrating it. It's like a little skeleton. It's got like, but it's just like, it's not it. I think I was having more fun with the process, maybe, of making it. I was involved in the making, and I couldn't make it be it. I couldn't make my way through it. I couldn't think my way through it. I couldn't merge the two. So I was like, okay, I'm going to change. And I've got this landscape because this was a very painful transition. And so you can just look at this while I tell you about this horrible, oh my God. Because I moved to New York and I was fucking 40 years old and I was ditching my practice. So I'm like, this should be the time when I have a gallery, when everything's going great. But, it just didn't work out. There's no way I could keep going. Just, it was just the way it was. So this really bad period, I mean, I bought a sewing machine, I tried sewing some shapes, I tried drawing, I tried everything, and it was just really painful and not good. But but I did learn some new things. I went back to music, I went back to performance, I went back to some things, just trying to take advantage of things that I was interested in. I think like if you're not super talented, I mean, I'm thinking about people that just like shine bright, do their work, and it's amazing. I'm not like that. And I was thinking about what makes that happen and how does that happen and where did that leave all of us that are artists and love art and want to make art. And so I think people go, oh, just be who you are and it'll all work out. What does that even mean of be who you are? How do you actually decide who you are? But I think it is true in that you have certain proclivities, you have certain talents. It may not be drawing or it may not be whatever, but you may be curious about reading and research. You may love theory. You may really be angry. You may figure out how to use some of these things that make up you. You don't have to define yourself, but there's certain things that make up you and your experience in life that you can figure out how to best configure and best use to meet the moment that you're in right now. And then a lot of things can happen through collaboration. That's where I started to collaborate with a lot of artists. I started to collaborate musically with a lot of artists. I started to collaborate doing more activism with a lot of artists. And so I did learn a lot through that. And then I had a chance to go to Brazil at a Fulbright. And um, that was amazing because just being with other artists and seeing how modernism has had influenced a whole other culture, what artists were doing, what young artists were thinking about. It was really meaningful. It was really meaningful. And so I think for me, it was letting everything go and not not thinking about it, not like torturing myself and going, well, I gotta be in the studio, I gotta like make this drawing, and kind of letting it go a little bit and being a little bit easier with it. But then it kind of came back to me. So when I was in Brazil, went to Brasilia and I was just kind of overwhelmed by this. This is a piece, I'll talk to you about it. I was overwhelmed by the way modernism affected Brazil. They call it tropical modernism, but it's really, it's very, I mean, it's very colonial. It's kind of controlling. So I had been doing a lot of music and had been looking, in my setups and stuff like amps, stereo components, that was all involved. And so I started thinking, well, these buildings in Brasilia, they look like little speakers. And so I thought, well, I'll make these little speakers and I'll write these love songs. I'm not really a sound artist. I'm more like songs, yay. So song artist. And so I decided I would make these little speakers as sculptures, but they were modeled off the buildings in Brasilia and add sound to them. And they would be a little singing city. And so that I was really happy with that. I was happy. That was the first piece I did. And I'm like, okay, now I feel like this is getting somewhere where I want it to be. It's merging some things that I feel like I was good at. I feel like I was good at making music and writing songs. I feel like I was good at building things. And so I can merge and maybe make something that feels like it might have legs. It might have a place to go. So this is it again. And so okay, so this was before digital technology. So I had to do it all electronically. It was hilarious because I wanted to do an 8-channel piece where the sound was tracked out to each building. And one would sing a love song. This was called Love Songs in Modernism. One building would sing a love song, and then there was a touch tone, electronic touch tone that would happen. Then the next, it would switch it, and the next building would sing a love song. And so all the way through. So the whole thing, the person or the viewer or the audience would walk around and different buildings would sing to them. And it was kind of tragic in a way, in the way modernism was kind of tragic, in the way Brasilia was built to kind of control people and their paths through spaces in the buildings and their paths to each building. And then the love songs were very tortured, whispered, tortured. So then the next piece was called There's Honey on the Moon. And those are 2 conjoined Empire State Buildings. And they were about 9 feet tall. And they also had sound. It was a 2-channel piece, which was much easier to do in those days because there was stereo. So you could just have one soundtrack to one and another soundtrack to the other. So there were 2 voices, one in each Empire State Building. And there's not a thing. Okay, so 2 voices. And I was thinking still about romantic love, the idea of the Empire State Building as this romantic icon, and how people in the day were writing about it, writing odes to it, saying, oh, it's so amazing building, and your spire is so high, and it's like the odes that were written to this. And so I thought, okay, I'll put the 2 buildings together, and the voices will be like 2 people in a sort of a romantic infatuation with each other, and they're complimenting each other, and they're seeing themselves, because sometimes you see yourself in another person, like what someone else says to you, that's you. So that's how you see yourself. You see yourself reflected in the other person. So by twinning, I hope to do that. So one tower would say, oh, you're so gorgeous. The other tower would say, oh, no, you're the most beautiful one. The other tower would say, you have so much charisma. The other tower would say, oh, no, you are so special. And so it went on and on like that, kind of ad nauseum. And it was funny. My work has always had sort of a comic flair to it, kind of a comedic thing going on. And so that was There's Honey on the Moon, and just paying tribute to maybe a lot of rom-coms that happen around the Empire State Building. And then those little things are tiny souvenirs, because of course, if you're going to do the Empire State Building, you have to have souvenirs. So I made put little speakers in them, little tiny souvenirs to sell. So anyway, it was a good piece. I like this piece. I thought it opened up some other places to go. This is Beached, and it's a palm tree, and it's a little fallen coconut. And it's also a 2-channel sound piece. And this is the mama tree, the coconut tree, is berating the coconut the MOMA tree is saying, this is all set to like a background of really kind of music, kind of nice rhythm. The palm tree is going, you'll never amount to anything, you little shit, I do and do and do for you, and you never care about, you just care about yourself. Why don't you ever think about me for a change? You know, so it was like that. So the little coconut, the sound of the little coconut, it was going, la, 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 like, so yeah, it was pretty funny and good. I liked it. So I was happy with this piece. And then the next, so I was still sticking with these sound pieces. And I was getting a little bit, I mean, I don't know, this piece was called Left. And I was thinking about architecture and alternative architecture, or architecture that people build, or architecture that's added on, and modernist architecture, nomadic architecture. And I was thinking about that in its relationship to 20th century manifestos. Like, I don't think now people don't write manifestos anymore, right? I mean, I don't think so. They were really a thing of the 20th century, where it was like the Situationist Manifesto, the Dogma Manifesto about filmmaking, Richard Serra's Verb List Manifesto, Buckminster Fuller's Manifesto on Architecture. So in each one of these little buildings, there was a manifesto. And so they would say the manifesto, then all the buildings would come together for a chorus. And so they would all sing together. And then the next one, then another manifesto would break out and start. So that was reading kind of verbatim these manifestos. But it was interesting going through, like, you see the little geodesic dome there. Well, Buckminster Fuller actually wrote a song to the geodesic dome, and it's pretty terrible. It's pretty misogynist. But it's like, roam home to a dome on the crest of a neighboring hill. And then I'm not going to say anymore because it's kind of misogynist, but you know, it was kind of crazy that he wrote a song to his dome. So, okay. So I used that, and I worked with some other musicians to help me flesh this out and to talk it and sing it. So I did have a variety of voices in there. All right, the next sound work, the next multi-channel sound work is called All Star. So I tried to look at these star buildings that manifest themselves in various cities and kind of define the city, like the Space Needle in Seattle, the Eiffel Tower, the Chrysler Building, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the city, I don't know what that is, Citibank Building in China. And I was thinking about an all-star baseball team or an all-star basketball team, like these buildings would be a team. And so the sound in them was, each had a drum part. So they made this really loud drum corps. So it was kind of this confrontational thing. When you walked into the space, you would hear this loud drum corps. Then they would each, of course, take a solo, because that was what they did. And now digital technology had gotten a little bit better. So I could make it with an ADAT machine, you know, it was like a videotape, it was a tape and the ADAT, so I could track out the sound, but still, you know, the chords were always a problem in commercial galleries because everything had to have these chords. So then went to multiple receivers. And so this was always a compromise for me, because they were like, no, people will trip over the chords. So here I used marbles to try to hide the chords to keep people from tripping on them. And the piece before, I laid astroturf down, so the chords were under the astroturf. So it was really a problem with the chords, and I always felt like it was a compromise. But leaving them was kind of, I couldn't do it at that point because, you know, worried about accessibility. They were worried about, you know, people being accessible, weren't being accessible to people coming in and out. So let's see, leaving this piece. Oh yeah, but the drum corps worked out really great. It was really kind of funny and wonderful and surprising. So that was going where I wanted it to go. This is the next piece. It was called It's All Good. And this is not a sound piece. This is an upside down drum kit that acts as a chandelier. And still it's out, I haven't been telling you about the material. The material is fabricated plastic. All of it's been fabricated plastic ever since I started working with plastic and imitating speaker components. So this is a chandelier, so it's light. It's symbols upside down and right side up, and it hangs from the ceiling. And it's a replica of my pink drum kit. This is called Bang City. It's a little floor piece, like facade of a small town, and there are radios in each building, tuned to different stations, mostly radio static. So there's a sound, there's kind of an ambient sound that comes from these radios. I was interested in radios for a while and try to make sound, use radios. I had a radio transmitter. This is weird because it's on this black background. It's on the floor. It's a floor piece. Those green things are like bases, plastic that I heated and made into a shape. And the little trailers have radios in them. And then so I had this radio transmitter, but in those days, the radio would only transmit like from here to the end of the, I mean, it was unbelievably not very much transmission room. And so I was trying to transmit to these. And so sometimes I would come to the gallery, this is another little one, and I would just go in the office. I was making a podcast before podcast, because then, I was talking, people who were walking by the place could hear it, but that was it only as far as like the transmitter would go. Maybe it would have gone across the street, I don't know. So that were public radios. This was a piece I did for Metrotech. It was in a bank building in Metrotech Center. It was kind of a replica of the old Ebbets Field where the Mets played. And so I got to go to Mets. It's so fun to sort of be an artist and worm your way into places. So I called up the Mets and I just said, hey, I'm making this piece about the old Ebbets Field. And could I come out to a batting practice and record some sounds of the team playing? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, what? Yes. Okay. So I went out there and it was so fun. And I got to, record the guys and just sort of be there. And I was so starstruck. It was really so cool. But the sound in it was just like, I used the bat crack as a rhythm, like when they would hit the ball. And so I sort of just transformed some of the sounds of that field, the wind sound, the bat crack, the people talking, into this sound piece. All right, so then I did this piece called Hiding in Plain Sight. And I kind of really got into mold making and casting. And this is sort of still where I am now, although materials have changed. So I was thinking, I lived in Montana for so long, and the way that environment is redefined by people, or the way it's sort of claimed, the way it's used. So I have bear rug that my grandfather shot that damn bear in Alaska when I was like, I don't know, 12. And so I've been hanging around the family. And so I just got it, made a mold of it, cast it in aluminum to make it a monumental replica of it. And so it could live on. And then so a bale, I've always been sort of fascinated by bales, like this redefining, this modernist redefining of this field, it's chaotic, and then you cut it, you bale it, you stack it. It's just form follows function a lot, like what modernism was trying to do. So, and then the wagon wheel, that other thing, is made out of plastic, but it's sort of weird, sci-fi looking, and maybe looks like a talisman or some witchy thing in the mix. So I had ambient sound in this piece, more like a soundtrack, but I realized it wasn't really doing much. So I kind of left sound and then really got into like mold making and casting. This piece is called It Could Have Been a Revolution. And I've always loved that piece in Soho of the Walter D. Maria Broken Kilometer. It's just good. I don't know, it's just good. And so these are fluorescent light fixtures that are the standard what do you call it, the standard size, like that you buy at the hardware store. You can't buy in the middle, you have to buy these standard sizes. So I cast fluorescent lights, and it's hard to see the little end, and the little two prong would go in, and then made it in high polished bronze, and kind of as an homage to the Walter Di Maria piece.
Was there a sound component to this?
There's no, I totally love sound. I love sound except for doing sound in performances, which is a whole nother lecture that I'm not touching on the collaborative work on this lecture, but yeah, the sound stayed with me, but it didn't, it left the sculpture. This is a cast gas can and water can. I think also there's something else, because I had a commercial gallery this time, and you are pushed in a commercial direction if you have a commercial gallery, you know, because they need to sell, and of course they need to sell, they're paying high rent. And so the sound work wasn't saleable because there was a lot of fuzziness to it. So it was concession. It was definitely a concession, but I feel like, you know, wherever you're pushed, your work is your work. You know, your work is what you're doing. All right, so the gas can, water can, high polished, talking about resources and hoarding and need and who gets it. These are two tanks, like an oxygen tank and an acetylene tank. I always liked their shape, the way they look like little figures, the way they're so heavy. And so to cast them in bronze was about their equal weight. It was about the weight of them. This show was called Save It For Me. And I was thinking that it was the aftermath of some sort of a party or wild gathering. And so the white thing is actually a mold I took of a hot tub cover. So maybe people were enjoying, you know, being in a hot tub, and there were candles melted down. Do I have like a, oh yeah. So there were a candle with, you know, wax coming down. There was a cake, muffins, bread, you know, this whole party, that excess, like too much. It's on the floor. This was part of the exhibition. It was a quart of muffins. I kind of, you know, sometimes I think I have more fun making these than actually they give off at the end, because it was so much fun to buy all these muffins and to like pin them to the wall in my studio, pin them to each other, and then take a rubber mold of it, and then take a wax, because I do everything in my studio except the actual casting, and then make it. It was so much fun to make. This was called I can't remember the name of it. Did I write it down? Stockpile. So it was bread that I got at all these bakeries on this table with the legs were twigs that had some branches cut off, and the background is wallpaper I designed of insects swirling around. I mean, I can like a file of insects, and then had that made into wallpaper. Hoping it would be kind of ominous but beautiful. The next show, this was called Sub Royal, and the main thing I did for this show was cast that psychiatric couch. And my father-in-law was a very well-known Freudian analyst, and so this was his couch that he used for his patients. And he was this kind of wild guy. I mean, they thought they could get to the root of evil in people. I mean, it was crazy. But at the time, I guess that's what this bunch of analysts were thinking. And so when he passed away, I got the couch. And of course, being a sculptor and thinking about objects and the aura that an object leaves, you know, what's left of, you know, what's baked into that object. What, you know, if I monumentalize that object, what will it give off anything? Will it, you know, what will it be? I mean, like he testified at John Wayne Gacy's trial about, you know, it was the insanity defense. He was a big guy in the insanity defense and what that is. And so that kind of then appealed to this thing with me about the body horror again. And I don't know. Okay, so this show, all right, so those are little heads that I cast in plaster of just like the zeitgeist. There were aliens, there were politicians, there were old presidents. There was the sofa. There was that examination lamp was steel. That painting was kind of like a hypnotic ball. And then there's green devils on one side of the gallery space, red devils on the other side. So the person, theoretically, the aura of the person would be on the couch, and the demons would be fighting each other across them. And then that was the sub-royal. Because I just
What year are we in now?
we're in 2000s. We're like 2006, haven't? Yeah.
It's like a Meltzer.
Pardon me? Yeah.
Sara Meltzer.
Yeah.
Do you draw the demons?
Say what?
Do you draw the demons?
The demons. Oh, it's the demons came from. I looked up online high school mascots, and there's so many devils. So if you look up devils, there might be a high school in Wyoming with one, and there might be a high school in everywhere. Everybody has a devils. Everybody wants to be a devil because they want to be devils. So the devils, I just like took out the whatever sports implement, put in a pitchfork. Like if they were holding it. So yeah, so I made the devils no, they're not original, but they're investigated and they're brought forward in a new way. So I don't know. All right, so these were the heads, the visitor heads that were coming up through the floor, like looking at this whole scene. Like Kennedy, I actually have Trump in there because I don't know, he's been in the guy's zeitgeist for a while. Unfortunately.
Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah, there was Ronald Reagan back there. A go sign that was in there when you first walked in. It's like devils are fighting each other, go into the exhibition. All right, I was asked to, I don't know why I was asked to do a light piece at Socrates Sculpture Park, but they said, do you want to do a light piece? I thought, sure, I'll do a light piece. So I got all these construction lights from one of those rental places, and police lights are up on the flag. And so I did this piece. Oh man, I wish I had better slides of this. But it was solar. Of course, when it got dark, that's when the lights flash on and off. And so it was made for the Roosevelt Expressway. When cars were on it, they would look over and see this amazing line of these blinking lights and these police lights. And it looked like this, maybe some sort of crazy incident, or that something was going on, or that there was something going on. But yeah. All right, so then, all right, next cast piece. This was a bookshelf that actually fell over in my living space in my apartment. And I really just wanted to take a mold of it and have it forever. And so I worked with an assistant. We took a mold of it. We built it. It took us so long. It cost so much money to do. But somehow, this is going to be shown at MANA Contemporary Art in New Jersey. Can you guys come over? It's really interesting place.
Is it bronze and then
It's
patina?
bronze with a patina.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gorgeous.
Like I said, we do everything in the studio. So we made it in the studio, took the mold of it in the studio. I'll show you a mold a little later. We took a mold in the studio, we cast it in wax in the studio, and then I sent the wax to a foundry. I was working with these guys in Omaha, Nebraska, that have this foundry that they were, a little bit less expensive than trying to get something cast here or upstate. It's like prohibitive. So we did it, and here's the back. You can see we took care, we even did the back. So, I wasn't so good with titles on this. I just called it Ruined Bookshelf. Because I didn't know if it needed a metaphor or anything.
And where is it installed here?
This is installed at Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art in, where's Southeastern Center? I think it's in Salem, North Carolina. All right, so then my next cast project was casting dropped clothes. So, you know, if you step out of you're taking a shower, you step out of your jeans and your underwear and your socks at the same time, and then they're just like a little ball on the floor. And so that was cast. So I had made molds of those, cast them in bronze and plaster. This is the studio with cast. You see a tie, a bra, shoe, jacket. So what I was thinking with these, I was thinking that it could be interpreted in a bunch of ways. It could be like people are off having wild sex, like some wild orgy, or it could be an act of violence, maybe, or it could be a rapture incident. So I liked all that, and they were also super heavy and kind of funny. They were installed. This was in Sweden. I got invited to be in this sculpture. What was it? Like an outdoor sculpture thing in Borås, Sweden. And so this was a drop dress and a bra, and it's very much a bathing culture. Everybody swims and, you know, uses the waterways for all kinds of stuff. And so this was a permanent installation there. And then this was shown in a gallery space. It's funny, right? There's something just so casual, but they took so long to make, and I felt like finally I was making the making and the presentation come together.
Mark, actually, if you can go back one.
Say what?
Can you go back?
It's okay, I'll say. Sorry. How was that? You didn't spend much time on the one more back?
Sweden?
Yeah, that's a permanent installation. That's amazing.
They bolted it, you know, it was a dock, and they went under and they could bolt it down. They're bronze, so they'll last. I mean, who knows?
The opposite of the old man on the horse.
Yes, and I haven't even talked about the whole idea of clothes defining the body, and, you know, being embodied in clothes are the way you present yourself to the world. You know, it's sort of what you want to people to think about you by the way you dress, by the way you are. Clothes are so interesting, and so the fact that they're kind of shedded and dropped, they can be this anti-monument but a monument. It was really interesting to me. And sad. So they can be both. As an artist, it's hard to ask. This was funny. It was in this exhibition space, this kind of very pristine exhibition space. This was a Gunda Gallery in somewhere in Ohio. But yeah, people will be used to seeing art, and when they walk in and there's nothing except just these things on the floor. And then the title of the show was Low too. I think I titled this Rowing in Eden after an Emily Dickinson poem. I hit it with the title there. I thought that was. All right, so moving on, there's a detail of a jacket. So what can I even take a mold of next? I'm so excited about doing this. So I took a mold of my friend's car, and this is the process. Okay, so this car's still running. It's a 2000 Hyundai. It's a 2000 Hyundai Accent, and it was a $10,000 car. And it was supposed to be a car for everyone, like anybody can have this car. It's in every man's car, in everyone's car. And so I thought that would be kind of fun to play with that car, play with the idea that's in every person's car, you know, what could that be? Where could that go? And so we were taking a mold of it, still taking a mold of it. This was blue. I started painting it, turned blue because I ran out of rubber, and I had to order more rubber, and I could only get it in, I don't know, it was a different brand. It was the same kind of rubber, but I thought it was so funny. I had this pink and blue car. The neighbors would come by and they would say, oh yeah, it's for breast cancer awareness week. Like, well, not really. And then they would come by again and go, what happened? All right, so when you're making a mold, to make something stay in the shape you want it to, you have to make like a shell around it, like a mother mold, a hard shell that fits back together, that you then seat the rubber with. Do you guys get that process? Yeah, so that's what you do. So I decided not to make the mother mold on this because I thought, I'm just gonna see what happens if this car goes everywhere. So we were cutting it off. There we are with its butt flap up. We're peeling the rubber slowly off the car. Here it is in the studio, laid out. You know, sometimes it's better than it ends up. It's halfway through a piece. You're like, ma'am, it's better. But of course, me, I have to torture everything until it's, you know,
Is
finished.
it upstate the studio or Philly?
This is my studio. This is my studio here.
Here
in Ridgewood.
Ridgewood.
In Ridgewood.
Wow.
I know it's an old
People are
synagogue.
invited to see it.
Yes, you're all invited to my studio. It's an old synagogue. I'm gonna have a gathering. It's an old synagogue that I bought like 26 years ago when it was not expensive. And so it's a mess. I mean, it's leaking and I can't afford to fix it up, but it's a great studio. And it's got place settings for 200 that they never took away. Oh, I could have a giant dinner party. All right, so there I am making parts of it. I decided to make it in pieces and then to put it together, you know, so that way I'm still looking for that immediacy. You know, the bookshelf was great, but you know, you do it and it's going to be what it is, and there's never any accident. There's never any fun thing that can happen that can change your way of thought, the way you think. So I am laying up plaster and reinforcing it. It's kind of a forton. It's a plaster material that's reinforced with some sort of plastic. Here it is in the studio. At the same time, I was making some small. Oh, there it is. Sorry, there it is in the gallery space. I think that's the back of it. And then what's great about this is I can change it every time I install it. I can make it look different. So I love this technique. And then
Is the cast material still flexible or is it like plaster?
this is plaster now.
Okay.
And I had to throw away the mold because I couldn't store it, which I'm so mad, but. And then this, remember I said that mold, I said that we have a place settings for 200. I took out from the synagogue all the plates, not all the plates, but some of the plates and vases, and I stacked them up and took a mold of it and made this arch. And that's what, so there's an arch and there's that car I call Relic. At the same time, I was making these little iPhones and engraving text on them. And one says, the original is unfaithful to the translation. That's a Borges quote. And I didn't attribute it on the phone, but I attributed it on the certificate of authenticity. I thought that was pretty cool move, you know? So the certificate of authenticity has this quote that's attributed to Borges, says the original is unfaithful to the translation. And the other is you are registered as a participant in a mass disturbance, which, yes. So they were broken and crushed iPhones. My gallery closed and there was not any money coming into the studio anymore. So I couldn't really do the casting like I was doing with like the bronze and the aluminum. They're expensive, but I still wanted to take molds. And so I decided, what if I just put aluminum foil over an object and then made an armature?
I think it's great that you found a cheaper way to do it. Awesome.
I did find a cheaper way to do it, but you know, it's different and better in a way, because every time I move these, they change. You know, they just, there's an armature inside of it, and they're just what they are. All right, so this was a piano that's in the synagogue, and then I cast legs, so it looks like it's flying up, and the legs are under there or below it, or it's like a dress. Or I kept thinking about, you know, those old films where somebody's got a safe coming out of a window and it drops on a person below, and you know, playing with that, but also this kind of uncanny sweep that this piano could have. So what I would do, I would take exact measurements of the piano, and then I would make an armature, but then distort the armature, then take these impressions with this industrial aluminum foil and put them all back together over this historic armature. That's the legs, they were cast aluminum. This is a piece I did by dumping oh, that real toxic foam. What is it? It's like a polyurethane foam into jackets. Like from Uniqlo, like those real cheap, but good, real cheap zip up puffy jackets. So I would pour this stuff and it expands. It's an expandable foam, so it expand. Put pigment in it. But I was also at the time like thinking about caring for an aging parent, you know, where you pick them up, lift them off the bed, and put them in a chair where your limbs all become entangled, and you're kind of all these people coming into one thing. Okay, and then I made this piece called Heat Map. This is getting started. This is with the pink rubber on this tree well on Cornelia Street in Queens. And so I wanted to make this. I love the way the roots of the trees, I mean, it's so simple, but it's so beautiful. But the root systems kind of, you know, come together, and the way that, you know, billions of dogs have peed on it, and there's trash, and you know, what is this tree well where nature comes together in the middle of the city? So I'm going to show you a little of this making of it, like the car. Okay, so now we're making a mother mode of this. That's that where it's reinforced. This is reinforced plaster there. So you make that in pieces, and then you put it back together again. All right, so making it back in the studio, those are the chunks. Those are the chunks. That's it all put back together, but upside down. And then here it is made in the positive. And I wanted to create this heat map that would be kind of telling a story of this tree. Like, where did dogs feed on it? What was this part? Did the paint spill on this part? Did kind of, you know, so I'm sort of using color to map it out. All right, this is from a show at Smack Mellon. This was about 5 years ago. Well, actually 6. This was in 2020. And okay, get this, my show opened and then COVID happened and he closed after 5 days. Like a 10-year retrospective. You know, it's like, why? But anyway, everybody lost something during that time. So you see the motorcycles, you see the motorcycles are cool because they kind of change more into animals every time they're transported and moved around because the metal shifts. And then there's the piece, that wriggle piece of all the bodies coming together. And then there's heat map. There's heat map, and there's how Relic looked, the car in this phase. I did this fire escape modeled off the fire escape just down the street from me, because they have this huge, they have like a 24-foot ceiling. I mean, a wall, 24-foot wall. So I was able to install this fire escape in its distortion, and that's the piano installed. Fire escape. It's hard to get a shot of this, so it became this drawing in space. These are just some shots of the show. This is another piece in the show that I called Goodyear. With keyboards that are distorted, so they resemble the like tires that fly off on an expressway, like on a highway on the New Jersey Turnpike. You see the like big trucks shed their tires. So these keyboards. Some more shots of the show. Just different various pieces. Motorcycles, again, I love them so much. All right, turtle crossing the road, another transition. But this one was painful, but it wasn't art-wise painful. It was painful because I lost a lot of people who I'd either collaborated with, or I lost my husband, who we'd been together for like 30 years. And so, you know, suffering those losses were just like, it really influences what you make, the way you are, the way you think. So I thought, I don't want to make heavy work. I don't want to make toxic work. I want to make work that will burden anyone. Like if I die, I don't want someone to come in my studio and what the fuck am I going to do with all this? So I wanted to make work that could just be kind of recycled immediately. And so I started working with paper. So can you see this is like a paper piano? They're almost not there. They're really delicate. They're just made with tissue paper. They're very much like a little shell. These were the drop clothes molds that I showed you before, the abandoned clothes. And so I could cast them in paper and they were falling clothes because I could mount them on a wall because they were easy for me to like, they're easy for me to like carry around. This was going back to my alien fixation. These were heads and it was like a little bottle that opened like a base or a bottle with, you know, these heads kind of flying around as bubbles. Not very conceptual, but I liked it as a drawing in this very, very light space. I love the way they caught the light. This is when I met you. I had this piece upstate. It's a bookshelf. The bookshelf. I still have the mold. And so I was taking impressions with tissue paper and pigment in the bookshelf. And I love that I can just throw them away. They're so easy. I can transport them in one bag. All right, so some other stuff in the studio. These are like these desk tumbling paper. And then the last one I'll leave you with is this Corinthian column made out of aluminum that there was this Corinthian column at Manhattan College that they let me use. And it looks very straight, but it's actually really kind of leaning over on the other side. And that's what I'm working on now. And I'm hoping to keep continuing this, to really work with this paper and figuring out this whole idea of impermanence, because I really want that to come through, you know, not the permanent cast bronze, but a certain real idea of impermanence of life, impermanence of everything that, you know, we're going through now, the bad and the good. And do I have any parting words for you? I don't think so. Sorry about that. I mean, it's just important for us to stay in this making space, I think, because it's needed and it's good. And you don't want to be, I mean, the algorithms think you're predictable. That's what they're feeding to you because they think you're predictable. And I was reading Timothy Snyder, who's a political scientist, and he was talking about how, you know, violent regimes burn books, they take away your choices. They, you know, that's how they can control. That's how they get control. And so artists, even though it might seem like a very small thing we're doing, and the large, you know, the way things are right now, and the large extent of the way the world is, we can only occupy these corners that we can with our talents, with our, you know, personalities, with what we feel is what we need to do. And I think that's got to be enough, just occupying that space. It's kind of all we can do. If we can flip someone's brain for a second into another space, into thinking about something in a different way, then I think we're kind of doing our job as artists. Not that we do it all the time with every piece, but we're still, you know, like plugging along, we try to do. So thank you, that's my talk.